Hello, and welcome to sim.bc, where it is 11:35. Well, quite hard to see there, but it is 11:35 anyway. And today you find me in school yet again in one of the classrooms. Let's see if I can open up here and show you the outside. Probably not, but I'm pretty high up in the school, so that's always fun, always nice to have a bit of a view, even though I've taken these down for, light purposes, since I'm very into light and stuff, from yesterday. Yet again, love to see your comments and feedback on what you thought about it. Already had some coming in, but more always welcome, more points of view, so to say. But yeah, today I had a bit of a, well, what should I say? I was all ragged up or something because we had an exam today, or rather a midterm. And when I'm thinking midterm, I think, the things I saw in movies when I was a kid, the US midterms where they sat up all night and studied, and they couldn't even fathom doing anything else than studying because there was nothing else than studying at that point in time when the midterm was coming around. So I was kind of having the same mindset. Even though I didn't study 24/7, I still had the mindset of this is probably going to be quite hard, isn't it? However, turns out it was the easiest thing ever. The midterm took me and me mate 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to do, and we had 1.5 hours to do it. I can't stress enough how easy this was. So either we are really good at this and it was really easy, or we were super wrong. Usually it is one of those. I feel like when I'm going into an exam, I usually come out thinking that was quite easy or easier than I expected, and then I quickly realize, or I've done something wrong. Because since I thought it was that easy, I probably missed something. But now we were two because we were allowed to work in pairs, so hopefully me mate and me didn't miss the same things, both of us. Could have been because we studied together, but hopefully we didn't. So anyway, it was quite of an interesting and fun and quite quick midterm exam. But that's not why you are here now, is it? We're here to continue the discussion of culture in a negotiation sense, I think, I hope. At least we're going to try to get into that today, I think. Planning and structure is everything, and unfortunately mine is not off the charts so far. And I'm having this room, it's quite a large room as you saw, and people will start quitting their classes. I'm quitting my class because we were doing, not quitting, but ended my class a bit earlier since we had a 10-minute midterm. Yes. But more people will come along soon, so let's get into it, shall we? So today we're going to talk about conceptualizing culture and negotiation, or that's where we're picking up today. So, just a quick definition then. Culture is a group level phenomenon. Thus a defined group of people shares beliefs, values, and behavioral expectations. Now, this is kind of the same thing as we talked about yesterday. I would say that this is the underlying assumption to Robin's definition of no, not Robin's definition, sorry, but Trompeneur's definition of everything being on a, how do you say, that culture is the way people are solving problems. And here we can see culture is a group level phenomenon. The same idea that it's a group level, how a group solves problems, it's a group level phenomenon, and that people share beliefs, values, and behavioral expectations. And that is as well helping when to solve a problem. Yet again, going into my idea that people already have these values when they get into a group, and then they make a decision based on their previous culture and these culture clashes, but technically that is creating another culture. But yes, it is quite, what you would say, the common belief here, the consensus is established that culture is a group level phenomenon. However, I would like to just intervene and say that since there are many individual cases even within culture and that you shouldn't stereotype, technically, if we should get really nitty-gritty and theoretical about it, every individual are their own, or should we say, expectation of culture. They are their own representation and their own interpretation of what their culture is and how they perceive culture. Because I would argue that even though many people say that culture is the overarching story, so to say, over a group of people, over all people, yet again, their shared beliefs, their values, and the behavioral expectations, I would say that since we can divide culture into subcultures, and since we can divide groups into subgroups, can't we use, and since two people can be split on a decision even though they are very similar in nature, I would say that culture could be a individual phenomenon as well. Now, I know that this isn't something that is commonly believed in the literature. I think that many people have made the argument that it could be, but still that a group is what we're defining culture of, and when it comes to the individual, it's just individual psychology and that person's, what should we say, individual's profile, something like that. So they're making a distinction between individual culture and group culture, at least calling it something else. But I would argue yet again that culture can be on an individual level as well. Anyway, the second thing here is cultural beliefs, values, and behavioral expectations are learned and passed on to new members of the group. Now, what do we mean by this? Well, PewDiePie actually made quite an interesting video about this, and I will not about this specifically, but I will link it in the description, where he talked about AI and, artificial intelligence and how the artificial intelligence might someday conquer the earth and all of that. Because in that video, he referred to Bill Gates talking about AIs. And what does AIs have to do with culture? Well, kind of nothing. But Bill Gates makes and PewDiePie, what you would say, rephrases that same thing, making it a bit easier to understand maybe, but takes up the idea that we people are just computers that are really slow, right? The way that we transmit information from one another is not the optimum solution, because every time a new person comes around, they don't have to reinvent everything that come before them, since we have documented that, but they do have to relearn everything that we learned. However, as a computer would just, they're going into the argument that the computer would just install that information and that knowledge in the new prototype going forward, but as we have kids, we are just transmitting the information a bit more slowly, or like a really slow computer with a lot of noise in their transmission of messages. But this comes around to the idea that beliefs, values, and behavioral expectations are learned and passed on, and that is true. However, our ancestors and our parents passed on to us how to use a spoon, for instance. In other parts of the world, it might be how to use your hands when you eat, or how to use chopsticks when you eat, or a fork, or a knife, or whatever you utilize to eat. But you get the idea that that is also a part of culture. These underlying assumptions and beliefs that I have, for instance, that when I eat, I expect to have either a fork and a knife or a spoon, whilst in other parts of the world, people are expecting something else. And this is because the beliefs, values, and behavioral expectations passed on from our ancestors and our parents and their parents before them to our parents, and then our parents to us, and what we will pass on from us to our kids. What will we be expecting when doing something as easy as eating a meal? Will we be expecting having a fork, a knife, and a spoon, or will we be expecting chopsticks, or eat with our hands, or flip the plate upside down, shove our head down in it? Why not? And this is how I would argue society has evolved over the years. That society has evolved in that people have seen something that works, something that doesn't work, something that needs to be refined, and they have refined it. Then they've taught their kids about this, or they're taught other people, their disciples, so to say, maybe. For instance, a good example is the difference between if you should go all biblical and discuss religion, which I so would like to do, but I would still try to take my distance, because I'm not a professional in the area. I've little to no expertise within this, even though I love discussing it, but I have no professional or pure educational expertise. But I would say that I think that Jesus was a Jewish man, and then he turned Christian or something, and then he's God at the same time. It's something crazy like that in the Bible, I think. But that is yet again if we should adapt it to culture, then we can see that someone saw a different way of doing things, and that is also, and spread that on to other people, and that is the way of spreading culture to disciples, not just necessarily your own children, but that you can actually influence a bigger part of your community, a bigger part of the pre-existing group, so to say, to make a new subgroup, to refine something that you believe is better. Now, I'm not saying that one of the religions are better than the other. This is just an example of saying that you could refine, or not refine, that might be the wrong word, but just change at least the way that was the common belief before, and thus creating a new form of cultural path. That comes around full circle yet again, that one person need to have seen this change and that person have individually created that culture within themselves that they then spread, that people interpretate yet again. It could be that this first person, then Jesus in this case, interpreted Judaism in a specific way that was so different from everybody else that he thought that there was a new way. Could be, but yeah, I don't want to get into this because I'm lacking the expertise. But anyway, the beliefs, values, and behavioral expectations are learned and passed on to new members of the group. And yes, this is, I would say, this is how culture is formed, and how learning is formed, and our, what you would say, our educational structure, our system. Yeah, both actually. Our educational system is based on an educational structure and how we're learning and how we're providing information and knowledge. Or we're specializing in stuff because we know that we can't learn everything, and this is because of we're so insufficient in our data transmission between people. But yeah, we're passing down this information in how to learn. That's why you go to school, that's why you study, that's why you become great at things. But this is a what you would say, a consequence of culture. Because of our culture being this way, because this is the most efficient way we've found to pass on knowledge, that is why our educational system looks the way it does, and that's why many, what you would say, people who are in higher positions are older, because they have the experience and they have been, not necessarily that they have been exposed, well, I would say this, they've been exposed and adapted to more information than younger people has. So me, for instance, if we compare me to someone who is a CEO at a company, even if they would put me in a CEO position, there would still be a huge gap. Even if we both been put in a CEO position and there were a 10-year gap between us, the other person being older, she would probably still be a better CEO than I would be, because of the age difference between us, that she has had 10 more years to adapt to the world, because of the structure and the culture that has been influencing the, what you would say, the system of how we learn this, passing down throughout groups, creating beliefs and creating stereotypes, unfortunately, but also criticizing stereotypes, but creating, what you would say, value over time in the sense of information and through information. So that was everything for me today, mates. I thought I would get into the 3 layers of culture: artificial symbols, norms and values, and, what should we say, basic assumptions. Yeah, but we'll probably get into that tomorrow then. So have a nice one, mates, and I'll see you tomorrow.